This channel investigates lives that look fine from the outside. Case 22 is about a specific kind of exhaustion. The exhaustion of a man who had mastered the performance of being okay in every room, for every person who needed him to be, for 9 years straight. If you have ever said fine and meant something else entirely, this case already belongs to you. Someone asked you today how you were. You said fine. You were not fine. You have not been fine for how long exactly? 6 months? A year? Longer than that? You said it anyway. Because it was easier. Because the alternative required a conversation you didn't have the energy to begin. Because fine is the word you use when you have decided that what is actually happening inside you is not worth the other person's time. The office smells of cold coffee tonight, and the particular silence of a man who has been here all night reading a file that opened 3 days ago and hasn't closed since. There is a cold that comes in under the door at 2 in the morning, the kind that doesn't leave until morning. I know it well. Tonight I am investigating a man named Rafael. He was 35 years old. He was fine for 9 years. Nobody noticed, including him. This case came to me in 3 envelopes, same address, different handwriting, a colleague, a wife, a friend. Each one describing the same man. Each one describing a completely different person. By the end of this investigation, 3 moves, not therapy. A precise diagnostic for anyone who has been load-bearing and invisible for long enough. The first witness had worked beside Rafael for 6 years. Same office, same floor. Coffee from the same machine at the same time every morning for 2,000 days. She sits with her back perfectly straight, hands flat on her knees, not folded, flat. The posture of someone who has rehearsed accuracy, who is more afraid of saying the wrong thing than of saying nothing at all. I asked her, how was he at work?
Rafael was the most reliable person I have ever worked with. If something needed to be done, you went to Rafael. He never complained. He never asked for help. He just handled it.
I asked, did he ever seem unhappy? She thought for a long time.
Not unhappy, just efficient. Like he had decided that feelings were something you dealt with after hours.
She looked at the ceiling when she said efficient, a word chosen carefully, a word that protects both of them from what she actually saw and chose not to name. I asked her one final question. Did you ever ask him how he was and mean it? She looked at her hands.
We asked. He always said fine. So we stopped asking. He seemed like someone who didn't need it.
6 years of shared coffee, approximately 312 mornings, 47 conversations about his weekend plans, conversations about his actual interior life, 0. He had made himself so easy to be around that no one had ever found him difficult to leave alone. The second witness had shared a home with Rafael for 11 years. She sits differently than the colleague, not composed, not breaking. Somewhere between the specific stillness of someone who has been worried for so long, they have forgotten what not worried feels like. Her hands pressed together slowly in her lap, as if holding something she is afraid of dropping. The room between us smells of hand cream and sleep deprivation, the particular combination of someone who has been keeping things together at home, the same way he had been keeping them together at work. I asked her, how was he at home?
Tired. Always tired. But when I asked, he said work was just busy. It was always just busy. For 11 years, it was just busy.
I asked, did he ever break down?
Once, about 4 years ago, he sat in the car for 40 minutes after getting home. I watched from the window. When he came inside, I asked what happened. He said, nothing. Rough day. We had dinner. We watched something. He never mentioned it again. And I let him not mention it. Because that was the agreement. I don't know when we made it. But we had...
This is the most important testimony in the file. The agreement she describes, unspoken, never chosen, is the architecture of disappearing. Not one decision, hundreds of small ones. Both of them choosing the easier version of the same evening, thousands of times. I have read this part of the file before. Different names, different kitchens, the agreement is always the same. One person decides not to fall apart. The other, grateful, relieved, exhausted, decides not to push. And slowly, without either of them choosing it, the distance becomes the relationship. The person sitting across from you at dinner is waiting for you to ask the question you have both agreed not to ask. The third witness had known Rafael since university, 18 years. He sits with his arms crossed, not defensive but bracing, the posture of a man who already knows what this conversation is going to cost him. His jaw is tight. His eyes move to the folders on my desk and then back, checking the evidence before he speaks. I asked him, how was he, really? The friend was quiet for a long time.
Honestly, I don't know. And that's what I can't stop thinking about. 18 years. I knew his coffee order. I knew which films he'd hated. I knew his father's name and his first girlfriend's name and what he'd wanted to be at 17. But if you asked me right now what he was actually feeling for the last 9 years, I couldn't tell you. He never showed me. And I never made him.
I asked, why not?
Because he seemed fine. He always seemed fine. And you don't push someone who seems fine. You just assume they are. Because it's easier. Because they're handling it. Because someone has to.
His arms uncrossed when he said someone has to. A small movement, barely visible. The body admitting something the voice hadn't fully said yet. Guilt arriving through the shoulders before it reached the words. 3 witnesses, 3 different relationships, 3 different versions of the same performance. The colleague saw competence. The wife saw reliability. The friend saw ease. None of them saw him. Neither did he. Camus wrote about what he called the absurd, the collision between the human need for meaning and the world's silence in response. But there is a smaller absurdity, a domestic one. The absurdity of a man who has become so skilled at appearing fine that he has lost access to the part of himself that isn't. The subject had not decided to hide. That is the critical finding of this investigation. He had simply optimized. Somewhere in his late 20s, he had learned that being fine was the version of himself that caused the least disruption, that asked the least of others, that kept things moving, that could be relied upon. And reliable, it turned out, was the most effective way to disappear in plain sight. In 9 years of being fine, Rafael had attended 23 birthday parties, organized 4 of them. Been asked, how are you, approximately 3,400 times. Answered honestly, 0. He had become the emotional infrastructure of everyone around him, load-bearing, invisible, essential, never inspected. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the discipline of perception, the ability to see things as they are, not as we wish them to be. Rafael had applied this discipline everywhere, to his work, to his finances, to his relationships. Everywhere except inward. He had looked clearly at everything, except the one thing that most required clarity. Heidegger wrote about authenticity, the courage to exist as you actually are, rather than as the world finds it convenient for you to be. Rafael was not inauthentic because he lied, was inauthentic because he had practiced the performance of fine for so long, that he had stopped knowing what the alternative felt like. The mask had not replaced the face. It had simply been on long enough that he had forgotten the mask was not the face. The subject's wife told me something at the end of her interview that did not make it into the formal file.
I found him in the car once, just sitting there. I watched him from the window for a while. He wasn't doing anything. He was just sitting. And I remember thinking, I don't know what he looks like when he's not performing for someone. I realized I had never seen it, and that frightened me more than anything.
The car smells of the day he couldn't leave behind. Coffee, the commute, the particular weight of a Tuesday that went on too long. This is the moment the case turns, not the collapse, not the crisis, not the dramatic gesture. The moment someone notices that they have never seen you when you are not performing, and neither have you. Move 1. Name the performance. Not to others, not yet, to yourself. Fine is not a feeling. Fine is the word you use when you have decided that your actual feelings are not worth the conversation. Name what is actually there. Exhaustion, loneliness, the specific weight of being needed by everyone and known by no one. Name it, once, privately, accurately. That is the first move. Move 2, choose one person and lower the cost. Rafael believed that being honest would require a complete accounting. 9 years of unexpressed interior life delivered in one conversation. The calculation was wrong. One person, one true sentence, not the full case, not the history. To the colleague, I am not actually fine today. To the wife, I sat in the car because I didn't know how to come inside. To the friend, I don't know how I am. I haven't known for a while. The person who receives it does not need to fix it. They only need to know it happened. Move 3, be inspected. Load-bearing structures require inspection. Rafael had been essential to everyone around him and maintained by no one, including himself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the help of those who want to give it." This was not weakness in his philosophy, it was engineering. The bridge that refuses inspection does not become stronger. It becomes the bridge that fails on an ordinary Tuesday with no warning and no explanation. Let someone inspect, once, imperfectly, before the ordinary Tuesday arrives. The subject called his friend on a Tuesday, not for any reason, not with a plan, not with 9 years of interior life prepared and organized. He called and said,
"I think I've been not fine for a long time. I don't know what to do about it yet, but I thought someone should know."
The friend said, "I know. I've been waiting for you to say it." The call lasted 40 minutes. No solutions were reached. Nothing was fixed. But something that had been load-bearing and invisible was, for 40 minutes, seen. The weight of being fine is not the weight of your problems. It is the weight of performing the absence of them, every day, in every room, for every person who finds it easier to believe you when you say it. The question is not whether you can keep carrying it. You have already proven that you can. The question is whether carrying it is the same thing as living. 3 final moves. 1. Name it privately. Fine is not a feeling. It is the word you use when you have decided your feelings don't qualify. 2. One sentence, one person, not the whole case. One true sentence to one person who has been waiting, without knowing they were waiting, to be trusted with it. 3. Let someone inspect. You have been essential and unmaintained for long enough. One honest answer to one honest question, not a collapse, an inspection, the kind that keeps structures standing. The colleague noticed something the week after. He came to her desk unusual and said, "I'm having a difficult week. I just wanted someone to know." She didn't know what to say, so she said, "Okay, do you want coffee?" He said yes. They sat for 11 minutes. Nothing was resolved, but for 11 minutes he was not performing, and she saw him, perhaps for the first time. The case is not about the weight. It is about what becomes possible when you stop pretending it isn't there.